In London, the sun shines down on the city as usual. A taxi driver starts his work early. Whether it's raining or sunny, he always has an extraordinary perspective on every person in this city. Today, he has found his chosen passenger, a potential customer who is still fast asleep. When Ian wakes from his dream, Samantha has been watching her boyfriend Ian for a long time. However, there is little time left before Samantha has to go to work. Ian is anxious to leave, but Samantha stops him and presents the gift she has prepared. Ian can only promise that he will prepare the same surprise for Samantha that day. But that day is an important day for Ian, and he must set off as soon as possible. Samantha knows Ian is busy with work, but still hopes he can go to the US with her to attend her mother's wedding. However, Ian's job does not allow him to take time off. Samantha always feels that Ian never listens to her words, always indifferent and repeatedly forgetting important matters. Suddenly, Samantha burns herself with the coffee pot, and after a quick fix, they rush out the door. Ian makes the most of his time to practice his speech and informs Samantha that they will have dinner at 7 that evening. The time of 7 makes Samantha think Ian is joking, as it coincides with her graduation recital. Seeing Ian stammering and unable to respond, Samantha feels disheartened because she understands that Ian has truly forgotten her most important recital. As they part ways, a passerby spills a drink all over Samantha. Yet Samantha still encourages Ian to leave quickly. After all, his career is what he values most. However, during practice, Ian accidentally breaks his watch, and the time bizarrely stops at 11 o'clock. Even the secretary believes that Ian is neglecting Samantha too much, as he gives her the same gift every year. Ian is extremely diligent in his work, and in just a few years of starting his business, he has led the company to thrive, and that day is an important moment for him to meet with investors. Ian views his career as life, and Samantha has always silently supported him. During the practice, Samantha discovers that Ian has left behind important materials. In a hurry, Samantha contacts a friend and rushes to the hotel where Ian is having his meeting. Upon arrival, Ian is not completely at ease in front of the investors. But Ian is confident in his project, gradually explaining his plans until Samantha arrives in a hurry. Unfortunately, the hotel staff is unwilling to deliver the materials, and in a moment of desperation, Samantha takes the opportunity to enter the room, only to find that Ian already has a copy of the materials. In that instant, Samantha feels extremely awkward and can only mutter to herself before leaving. Samantha, feeling that things were not going as she wished, confided her dissatisfaction to her friend Lottie. Lottie and Samantha are both classmates at the Art Academy. Samantha is American and went to London alone several years ago to study music, teaching violin and children's interest classes during her free time. Although the children's skills are still immature, Samantha is very happy because she loves this group of innocent and carefree kids. Despite Samantha's little episode, Ian still confidently assured his friend that this meeting would surely be a success. However, Samantha's actions left Ian feeling at a loss. He couldn't understand why Samantha was inexplicably angry all morning over a few forgotten small matters. Ian's friend, still enthusiastic about flirting, was repeatedly rejected. Suddenly, a white ball hit and shattered Ian's wine glass. Taking the opportunity, Ian left, but felt no joy in his heart. Samantha's multiple missed calls and the investment progress not meeting expectations left Ian feeling oppressed and confused. In the meantime, Samantha, passing by, saw Ian wandering into a travel goods store. Samantha immediately recalled the surprise Ian mentioned in the morning and secretly speculated whether Ian would really return to America with her. Wandering aimlessly, Ian had been strolling around London all afternoon. In a daze, Ian hailed a taxi, hoping to go to Samantha's concert hall. Unexpectedly, the driver seemed to know Ian's situation well, even being aware of his emotional troubles. Ian was reluctant to mention personal matters, but for some reason, he suddenly felt the urge to confide. Ian told the driver that he deeply loved Samantha, but didn't know how to make her happy. Ian was confused about loving someone so deeply, yet not knowing how to love. The driver asked Ian if he truly loved Samantha, and if Samantha were to leave the next day and never return, could Ian accept that? The driver suggested that if he couldn't accept it, he should cherish Samantha, be grateful for what he had, and love her sincerely. After saying this, the driver dropped Ian off at his destination early and reminded him to prepare a gift. This driver was quite peculiar, but also an excellent listener. At this time, the concert hall was already full. During the ensemble, Samantha did not forget to signal to Ian that everything was going very smoothly. The graduation concert was a complete success. Samantha's student Oliver presented a gift to the teacher, but Ian remained silent, unwilling to linger, because the investment results had already been announced and he missed this opportunity. Samantha tried every possible way to make Ian happy, not understanding why he did not answer her calls. Ian stated that he had been pondering their relationship all afternoon until he met that driver. Ian finally realized that he greatly appreciated Samantha and hoped to settle down with her in London. At that moment, Samantha felt deeply disappointed. Samantha believed that Ian never understood her feelings, never shared his own matters, disregarded her feelings, never truly respected her, and even showed disdain for his favorite student. Samantha did not understand why it was so difficult for Ian to say the words, "I love you." Samantha knew Ian had great ambitions, but she also understood that she would always come second in his heart. Sadly, Samantha had gradually become accustomed to this situation. Samantha understood that Ian would never be able to comprehend her emotions. Samantha deeply hoped that one day the communication barrier between them could be eliminated. At that moment, Samantha could no longer face Ian. Before leaving, Samantha really wanted to know what the surprise was that she had been looking forward to all day. Little did she know that Ian was just preparing for another business trip at the travel supply store. Ian tried to explain everything, hoping to keep Samantha with him, and he began to worry that this separation might be a final goodbye. Faced with the driver's urging, Ian did not get into the car. Ian suddenly realized that this driver was the same peculiar driver he had encountered before. The driver informed Ian that whether to get in or not was entirely up to him. As soon as he finished speaking, the clock struck 11 at night. Ian watched as the heartbroken Samantha gradually walked away. Only then did Ian hope to make a final attempt to salvage the situation. Unexpectedly, an accident occurred, and a car came speeding towards them. At that moment, Ian panicked and desperately hoped for Samantha's safety. Watching Samantha lose consciousness and unable to move in the emergency room, Ian was heartbroken. Ian constantly blamed himself, thinking that if he had said one more word, if he had kept Samantha with him, if he had accompanied her well, the outcome might have been different. However, there are no ifs in this world, nor chances to start over. Samantha passed away, and a tragic car accident took her life. When Lottie arrived, Ian was already exhausted. Ian regretted his past actions and could not accept that Samantha was gone. That night, Ian looked at the box of items related to himself in Samantha's music box and finally understood her deep love for him. Ian opened Samantha's diary, which recorded the moments from their first meeting to falling in love, filled with Samantha's perspective of Ian, full of devotion and concern. By chance, Ian discovered a piece of sheet music, a song that Samantha had composed herself, which she had intended to give to Ian that day, but had changed to another gift out of shyness. Now that Samantha was no longer here, the love only grew stronger. Ian deeply misses Samantha. The next morning, everything is as usual, but Ian's heart can no longer be calm. Suddenly, Ian finds his watch intact, and he even hears Samantha's voice in his ear. Ian turns around and sees Samantha sitting peacefully by the bed. At that moment, Ian is both surprised and delighted. Ian does not know why all this is happening, nor does he understand how Samantha could come back to life. Only this embrace feels incredibly real. Ian wants to share the experience of the previous night, but sees Samantha preparing gifts and realizes that today is the day of the meeting. Ian finally understands that he has returned to yesterday, to the morning when the tragedy began. During the preparation, Ian has a thought. Since he has returned to yesterday, he must change everything. Ian timely prevents Samantha from getting burned, but Samantha still accidentally burns her palm while washing up. Ian can't help but wonder, can this all truly not be changed? When leaving, Ian chooses a different route, unwilling to witness Samantha getting splashed with a drink again, always alert to passing vehicles and pedestrians. But in the end, Samantha is still knocked down and the drink spills all over her. Ian wants to explain the reason to Samantha, but fears speaking of that terrible ending. Samantha comforts Ian, saying that if the watch is not damaged, then everything is just a dream and there is no need to worry. Seeing the watch still intact, Ian's heart gradually calms down. Perhaps all of this is just a dream. Fortunately, Ian remembers the time of the concert. Facing the secretary, Ian wants to clarify this strange experience. The secretary says that if it is truly so, Ian should follow the guidance of his heart. Having experienced a failed meeting once, Ian is now very worried about Samantha suddenly appearing. Fortunately, Samantha does not come, which gives Ian the illusion that everything is about to start anew. Ian decides to seize this opportunity, changing his usual serious style, emphasizing the important meaning of time and life, and successfully wins this investment opportunity. It is still a gathering among friends, still an unsuccessful attempt at flirting. Ian really wants to tell his friends that he can foresee what will happen next. Until Ian catches a flying billiard ball, he suddenly has an insight. Since he can foresee the future, perhaps he can change the outcome. Ian hurriedly sets off in a car, but finds that the driver is the same one from the previous night. Clearly, the driver knows that Ian is reliving this day. Ian is eager to know if everything can really be changed. In response to Ian's excitement, the driver repeats that sentence. Cherish Samantha, be grateful for what you have, and love sincerely. In anger, Ian decides to find Samantha and take her away. Ian rushes to school to find Samantha, but discovers countless children named Oliver. Ian ran through all the familiar places, but was unable to find Samantha. Ian then went to Lottie's house, only to find it empty. At that moment, a security guard stopped Ian, who looked unusually distressed. The security guard knew Samantha and had a good impression of her. This security guard also said the familiar phrase, wishing he could be a few years younger. The name of the security guard was Oliver. It turned out that everything was a predetermined fact, just presented in different forms. Ian finally found Samantha at the exhibition site and immediately took her away from London. Where they were going didn't matter. What mattered was leaving the city. Letting Samantha take the lead, Ian never expected that she would choose his hometown, a remote town at the foot of a mountain, as their destination. Samantha wanted to meet Ian's family and experience the environment in which Ian grew up. At that moment, Ian was deeply moved and finally felt Samantha's intense love. So, Ian took Samantha to his secret base, a towering mountaintop that was the spiritual sanctuary of young Ian. Unexpectedly, it started to rain heavily, and the two took shelter in an empty house at the mountaintop. Samantha was quite puzzled as to why Ian never mentioned his family. Ian was unwilling to talk about the past because he knew how hard everything had been back then. While making a fire, anxious Ian heard a crisp sound. That watch was broken again. Nothing had changed, and everything was heading towards a predetermined outcome. At that moment, Ian understood that nothing could be reversed. Looking at Samantha's happy smile, Ian remembered the driver's words, "Just love with your heart." In an instant, Ian was in tears. Ian wanted to know what wish Samantha would have if she were at the last moment of her life. Samantha told Ian that she asked for nothing else but to spend the last moment with him, just like this moment, being together, sharing thoughts, and feeling the most genuine intimacy. Ian finally spoke the words he had never said before, confessing his love to Samantha. The intimacy between the two was passionate and enduring. Cherishing the present became Ian's most genuine realization. Ian no longer clung to the mountaintop of his childhood and took Samantha to the tavern in the town, finally telling her about his childhood. It turned out that there used to be a large factory in the area, and Ian's father, who worked there, was a hero in Ian's eyes. Until the factory relocated, and after his father lost his job, he fell into alcoholism. From that moment on, the image of his hero in Ian's heart collapsed. Young Ian felt helpless, unwilling to let work destroy his family, unwilling to bear the disdainful looks of others, and just wanted to escape this village and flee from his gray childhood. Thus, Ian devoted himself to his career, eager to prove himself. After learning about Ian's childhood experiences, Samantha was filled with compassion. Samantha told Ian that his father loved him just as much, and that death is not the end of love, but rather a continuation of feelings in another form. Samantha was puzzled by Ian's unusual behavior, not understanding why he was stopping her from returning to London for the concert. But Ian knew that everything was still progressing along the predetermined path, and he felt powerless. Since he couldn't change it, Ian decided to fully enjoy this beautiful day. Ian took Samantha on the most beautiful Ferris wheel by the Thames. The night view at that moment captivated Samantha. Samantha thanked Ian for giving her the most wonderful day. But Samantha still felt a bit of regret. Ian really wanted to hear Samantha sing, but she was timid and very concerned about others' opinions and evaluations. So, Ian decided to prepare a surprise for Samantha. Ian took Samantha's sheet music and, under the pretext of work, made copies and contacted the band members, hoping they would give Samantha the opportunity to perform. Ian also walked into a jewelry store he had never noticed before and carefully selected a gift. The concert was held as scheduled and was progressing smoothly, about to come to an end. Suddenly, Ian announced an impromptu encore song to be sung by Samantha. At that moment, the extra sheet music made Samantha instantly realize that this surprise was all from Ian's heart. Despite the repeated prelude, Samantha was still too nervous to speak. Gradually, Samantha calmed her emotions and finally sang the first line of lyrics. From the first line, Samantha fully immersed herself in the performance, her emotions becoming more sincere and her singing more moving. The band's performance and the choir's coordination made this original piece present a perfect effect, winning enthusiastic applause from the audience. Samantha felt grateful to Ian in her heart, thanking him for the carefully prepared surprise. Still immersed in the joy of singing, Samantha was anxious about whether the restaurant she chose would meet Ian's approval. At that moment, Ian no longer cared about these details. In his eyes, Samantha had never been so radiant. Ian also finally realized that Samantha had indeed come to the venue during that day's meeting. Since nothing could be changed, Ian decided to love Samantha wholeheartedly. Ian presented the carefully prepared graduation gift, each pendant carrying their sweet memories, with the last heart-shaped pendant representing love. Samantha was delighted and moved. She felt that on this day, she and Ian had never been so close and without barriers. Samantha hoped that every day in the future could be like this, with every moment staying in the present. Every gathering eventually has to end. In the heavy rain, the two returned to the familiar restaurant entrance. Looking at the pouring rain, facing their destined fate, Ian expressed his feelings to Samantha. Ian told Samantha that he has always acted thoughtfully, yet on this day, he learned from her how to love and how to understand the true meaning of life. At that moment, Ian understood the meaning of love. Ian thanked Samantha for teaching him to love and be loved, because the beauty of this day surpassed the decades that followed. At that moment, the familiar taxi stopped in front of the two. This time, Ian chose to get in, sitting in the place Samantha had occupied before. If everything cannot be changed, if heaven grants another chance, if the red light, the bell, and the car still arrive as scheduled, Ian chooses to face it calmly, choosing to love Samantha with his life. When Lottie arrived at the hospital again, her concern was still for her friend Samantha. Only this time, Lottie worried that Samantha could not bear the blow of Ian's passing. Samantha finally understood that all day, Ian had been trying to tell her the truth, yet she never understood. Samantha knew well that loving Ian was easy for her, but she never thought that for Ian, loving someone required the price of life. On that day, the most painful person was Samantha. 6 months later, Samantha finally moved out of the place they once shared. But she always carried that broken watch, the time frozen at 11 o'clock when Ian passed away. Samantha would wholeheartedly interpret each of her works. Samantha firmly believed that Ian was always watching her on stage. Samantha would go to that high mountain, to Ian's little pure land. Because love does not fade with death, it exists eternally in another form. Ian once said that Samantha taught him how to love, and Samantha also thanked Ian in her heart for giving her the most perfect day of her life.